Hi, this is Audrey Blair, and you're listening to the Change is Hard podcast, episode 20. Hello, and welcome back. I am glad you're here as always. And I'm feeling pretty good. I just had a good lunch. And if you're like me, sometimes I like to reverse engineer some of my favorite dishes from certain places. And we have a place here called Kava. I know it's not unique here, but I don't know if it's all over the country. But it's a fast, casual kind of Chipotle style place, except for bowls and salads and things like that. And so I put together my Kava bowl today, and it was delicious and healthy because what I really wanted to do was go grab this croissant thing that I got at Costco last week. And I thought that's probably not going to help me right now. So I went and chose the better direction. So I am actually a little bit proud of myself in the moment, although you see that I'm still thinking about that croissant. So we'll see how long that lasts. I am also excited because this weekend, actually last Friday, I went with my daughter. She got an invitation to one of the schools that she applied for to do a campus visit and to do an interview with the school. So the school is UNC SA, which is the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. And it is a really small conservatory for performing arts and kind of the front and back of the house when it comes to entertainment. And it's actually one of the top schools in the country for that. And she applied. It was a little bit surprising because she waited to the last minute to apply, put together a portfolio, and got called in for this interview. So we went, toured the campus, got the talk from the dean, and then she had her interview, which apparently went really well because not only did they like her portfolio, they told her in the middle of the interview that she had been selected and that she is in. So that's exciting. I don't know how common that is that on the day that you go to the school that they let you know, hey, you're in. So she has some decisions to make. We're waiting to hear back from one more school that she applied to before she makes a final decision. But she's got some options. And frankly, I don't envy her options because there are pluses and minuses across the board. But I don't know. It's kind of a cool place to be in. It is a pretty cool school. It is quite small, so you do let go of some of the more standard university and college things, but it's not quite her thing anyway. So this might be the best fit for her. I don't know. But no matter what, I'm actually happy because whatever she decides, she'll be not too far from home. So it'll be driving distance out of all the options that are left for her, and she won't be too far away. And in any case, no matter what she decides, we are in the midst of that transition in terms of sending one of our kids away to school. So that is what's going on in my household, at least one of the things going on in my household at the moment. I'm excited. I'll keep you updated to see what she decides to do. I don't know. She doesn't know. So I guess the next couple of months we'll be having these conversations. Speaking of transitions, today we are going to talk more about pivoting. Last week, if you listen to last week's episode, I introduced pivoting, what it means, why it's important, and how to know when you're ready for a shift. And today I want to take that conversation just a little bit deeper. Here's the thing, it's not the lack of opportunity or timing or resources that keeps most people from pivoting. It's the way they think about it. It's typically your mindset that holds you back. So, in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about why pivoting feels risky and uncertain. I'm going to talk about the common mindset barriers that keep you stuck, like fear of failure or regret or losing credibility. I'm also going to talk a little bit about how to reframe those fears into opportunities And really importantly, I'm going to give you some practical strategies to help you move past some of these mental roadblocks. So, if you've ever felt stuck or uncertain, or I like to think of it as maybe like an itch that you can't scratch, something that not quite fulfilled, or you feel like there's something more and not sure what that is. And so, if you're in that spot, keep listening, and I've got some things for you. By the way, this is one of the main things that I help clients with. So if it's something that you are really wanting to figure out now, what you're going to be doing over the next couple of years, grab the link in the show notes and schedule a call with me, and we can talk about how I can help you through one on one coaching or even come in and work with your team on these things. So let's get into it. Starting out with why pivoting feels risky and uncertain. And why does pivoting feel so terrifying? Well, at its core, it really is about stepping into the unknown. And I want you to think about this. There used to be a time, perhaps, when you were younger, when stepping into that unknown was exciting and it wasn't necessarily something that held you back. And if you transitioning from your household into a new household, whether that was going to college or moving in with your first roommate or moving out of state, while yes, I'm certain there was some fear there, but it was probably more excitement than fear. And there's something about as we get older, we allow that fear to come in and get in the way. Now, it might have something to do with we feel like, well, I've got more to lose now. I'm older, or maybe I have a house or I've got a family. There's things, other things besides myself and other people that I need to consider. Well, that is certainly true, but it doesn't mean that all of that has to go out the door. But pivoting does require leaving behind some of the comforts of what's familiar. And even if what's familiar to you is frustrating or unfulfilling or even just exhausting, you can still keep yourself in a place just because it's what you know and just because it's familiar. I was working with a client recently, and it was so interesting. We were talking about, we finally got her to a point where she was no longer working on the weekends because that was just something that she did. But even during the week, she would get home, be exhausted, and still take out her laptop, set it up on her either her office or in her bed and be thinking that she's going to do 1 or 2 more hours of work this in an evening. And it just was something that she did, even though she was tired and exhausted. And just our brains are wired for certainty. If you know for certain that's something you're going to do, it will continue to do that. The other thing that gets in the way is that we want to know the outcome before we take action. Isn't that crazy? We want to know what the percentage of success is before we do something. But pivoting just does not give you that luxury. It does require a little bit of trust. It requires some belief. It requires some faith. And a lot of that is wrapped into requiring that you trust yourself during this process. Now, another reason that pivoting can feel risky is because we have been conditioned to believe that success should be linear, like up and to the right, always. There's no other ways to think about that, or everything else is a failure. So things like staying in a singular industry or climbing the corporate ladder, although that is getting debunked so much these days and has been for a long time. But still, things like stick with what you're good at or don't waste your experience are all reasons why you might believe that you should stay where you are. And here's what I want you to hear, that your career in your life is not a ladder, it is non linear. Think about it more like a jungle gym. You might want to come over here and play for a little while. You may go to another apparatus that requires some of what you know, but some additional learning. But still, you can build strength and build knowledge by exploring other things around you. So you can always move sideways, and you can even take a step back to ultimately move forward in a way that aligns more with your long-term vision. So for most people, what keeps them where they are? And those are mindset blocks. So let's talk about three of the biggest ones right now. Number one, and you know it, I know it, we all experience it, and that is the fear of failure. How do I know this pivot is going to work out? Well, you don't know, and that's okay. Sometimes it's about the exploration and finding out what's on the other side. But this is a question that keeps so many people paralyzed because, to be honest, pivoting does come with some uncertainty. Like we just talked about, there is no guarantee of success. One of the best questions that I use when I'm working with clients is, "Hey, if I had a magic wand and I could guarantee success and 100% success and you could not fail, what would you do? What would that look like?" And it's amazing what people say when they remove the possibility of failure and think about what could be possible for them. And it's interesting how then we quickly shut that down. But let's think about it in another way. What if staying where you are is the bigger risk? What if not making a move costs you more time, energy, and fulfillment later on? And frankly, failure isn't necessarily the opposite of success, but sometimes it's necessary to a step forward. Now, can you consider that? Maybe the failure, there's a learning, and then from that learning, you're able to move forward. So, thinking about how to reframe the fear of failure is instead thinking, what if I fail? Maybe you can ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? A lot of times we don't consider that and allow yourself to think about, well, what is the worst that can happen? And our brain comes up with a lot of disaster scenarios and then go, okay, well, what if that happened? What would I do? And answer it. Give yourself an answer. And you might recognize and see that, oh, maybe it's not that scary after all. Most of the time, again, we map out the worst case scenario, and it usually is not nearly as bad as you think. Then you think about, well, what's the best case? Because that's where the growth lives in you thinking about how I can move forward. Even if I do fail, do I trust myself to learn from that failure and move forward? All right, number two, the fear of regret. And sometimes that can show up as the question of, well, what if I make the wrong decision? What if I regret this? And this is a tricky one. And I think it depends on how you view regret. I have an interesting view of regret. There are some decisions I've made that honestly I regret. It doesn't mean I make myself feel bad for them, but certainly if I had certain things to do over again, yes, I would choose something different. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything after that has been a failure. It just simply means that now that I know and I've learned, maybe I would probably make a different decision. And there's nothing wrong with that. But this one keeps people stuck in analysis by paralysis. No, I said that wrong. This keeps people stuck in analysis paralysis. So being paralyzed by constantly analyzing, what if I regret this? Is this the right decision? So overthinking it and waiting for that perfect moment. And then here's what's crazy, trying to control every variable before you even take any action, which that is really impossible, which is why people tend to get stuck. So you simply cannot predict every outcome. But another thing that comes back to trusting yourself is, do you trust yourself to handle whatever comes next? And a lot of times that's where it falls apart for people. You want others to trust you, but sometimes you have a hard time trusting yourself with if something goes wrong. And if you think about it, you do that all the time. There's no way that I believe that everything that you put your mind to or every day goes exactly the way you planned. And so you have to enact this and do this fairly regularly. Why not in this instance? So you can reframe this fear by asking yourself, well, what's the cost of not acting? For example, in 5 years, will I regret not making a move? It makes me think about when we moved to North Carolina and the house that we're in came on the market, and it was right at the top of what we wanted to spend. And my husband asked me, he was like, "Well, listen, we can pull the plug now, but I would rather wait a little bit longer." And the one question I kept asking myself was, 5 years from now, if I'm not in this home, will I regret it? The answer that kept coming back to me was yes. Yes, if I'm not here, I'm willing to sacrifice now so that I can build something long term in this place. And we've been here ever since, and I love it, and it's great. Another question you can ask yourself is, what can I learn from this pivot, even if it doesn't go as planned? And that is something that happens as well. We moved here because of a job that my husband got. After 5 years, they were ready to move on. And so now what? Do we stay? Do we go? What do we do? I don't know that it was necessarily a 5 year plan. We had little kids at the time. So we had to, again, make some pivots. So every step, right or wrong, definitely gives you more clarity about what you want. And that's also something that is very important. Sometimes making a decision and going, no, that's not it, you get to cross it off your list because now you're more clear about what it is that you do want. And the only way that you can really fail is by not doing anything at all. So keeping that in mind. All right, the third one that we're going to talk about is, what will people think? This is a big one, especially for high achievers who have already built a strong reputation in their industry, in their role, maybe with their education. And you might worry that making a shift will make you look indecisive or uncommitted, or maybe it could look like you're starting over. But people respect confidence and clarity. People respect others who make shifts and make those pivots. Even if they don't agree with what they're doing, there's something about somebody making a decision and just doing it and moving forward. And if you own what you're doing and if you pivot with purpose, others will see that courage. And when they are ready to make that decision, they're going to follow your lead. You don't become less of a leader in those situations. Frankly, you become more. So instead of thinking I'm going to lose credibility, you can reframe it as, I'm evolving. And this is a sign of growth, not weakness. I'm bringing a wealth of experience into a new space, and that makes me an asset. That is huge, especially if you're pivoting, whether it's an industry or even within your organization, pivoting to another part of the business. If you can articulate how your experience can help another part of the business grow and expand, that is amazing, and it speaks volumes. And the people who truly matter, they will support you. They may not understand you, but they'll support you. So, really, frankly, you don't lose credibility by pivoting. You lose it by staying stuck in something that no longer aligns with who you are. And I think this is similar to another move that I made from one organization to another, totally different, not totally different, but a different industry, a different role. And it was interesting for me to go through this mindset about, okay, I'm not necessarily starting over. I'm taking what I've learned so far and I'm putting it into this place. So, and there was a lot of growing that I needed to do in that role. And ultimately, it led me to where I am now. And so I am super grateful for that. All right. So now that we've broken down these mindsets, let's talk about some practical ways to move forward. And the number one thing that we can do, that you can do, is you can normalize uncertainty. And as I said before, pivoting is not about knowing every step. All you have to think about is knowing your next step. What is the one next thing I can do? Give yourself permission to explore without needing all the answers. And I know that's hard for some of you. It's hard for me. It's hard for me. And thinking about, okay, breaking it all down into what is the very next thing I need to do. Another thing that you can do is take small, low stakes actions. So you don't have to quit your job tomorrow. And your pivot may have nothing to do with quitting your job. You may want to explore something totally different. You might want to explore getting on a board or writing a book or using your expertise to become a speaker. It may have nothing to do with quitting your job, but no matter what, you don't have to make a huge step tomorrow. Start by just having conversations, asking people what they think about it, exploring and understanding what new skills might you need to learn, or taking on a side project related to your next pivot. Maybe there's some smaller projects within the organization or somewhere in your community that you can volunteer for or ask how to get involved just to get some of the experience. So those some of those small actions build momentum and it helps you with your confidence. So another way you can move past these roadblocks is you can shift your identity from your title to your skill set. So instead of saying I'm a doctor or I'm a PhD or I'm a whatever that is, start thinking about it as I'm someone with valuable skills that you can apply in new ways. And this really requires for you to think about what your value proposition is. I call it your personal value proposition. You understanding who you are, what you do, and that value that you bring to the rooms that you step into, it allows you to not waste your experience, but you can then see how it can be repurposed. Because that value proposition, no matter what, anytime you step in, you go, okay, here's how I can use who I am and what I do in this situation. And that, I tell you, that is something that's very, very powerful. That particular reframe for a lot of clients changes so many conversations. It changes how they show up in the interview. It changes how they show up at that promotion. It changes how they think about their goals moving forward within their career or at the organization. So, moving away so much from the title, and I know that can also be challenging, but understanding as I pivot, as I shift, I am bringing such value to this new place. So the next shift here is around getting the right support. So work with a coach. Of course, yes, this is me telling you to reach out. I think coaching is amazing. It works. It's one of the things that helped me to get to where I am and even making the pivot and really changing the trajectory of what I'm doing. Not only that, but I see it with my clients as well. And I know other coaches and I know the people who have had coaches, and it works. Having a place for you to explore these ideas with someone that has nothing to do with it, that can be objective, that can bounce ideas with you, someone that can challenge the thinking, challenge some of your thoughts, that is so key. So you want to surround yourself with people who see the possibilities instead of the limitations. And we know that a lot of times our mindset is shaped by the people that we have around us. Now, if you're in a situation where maybe your spouse or your significant other doesn't quite understand this, that's okay. You don't have to take their thoughts and make them your thoughts, but it does mean that you're going to have to get support from other places until they can start seeing and understanding what it is that you want to do. And that can be a trap for a lot of people as well. Another way that you can shift and move past these roadblocks is to take the first step now, not tomorrow, not next year, right now. What is the next thing you can do this week to start exploring where you might want to end up? It doesn't have to be big, but it does need to happen. I think I shared in the last episode where I am now started with a simple phone call. I wasn't sure what the phone call was, what I was going to say, or what questions I had, but I made the call and I just went with whatever was coming up. And it helped me to maintain and stay on the path that I was on. And I see this with clients as well. We don't talk about the big, huge things we can do. We talk about what is the one thing you can go in tomorrow? What's that one conversation you can have? Or what is that one thing or that one skill you can inquire about to start you down the path? And that will help you to figure out and think about how to move past these roadblocks. It's in the action, it's not in the theory. A lot of times clients will go, well, I know X, Y, or Z, but have you experienced it? There's a difference between knowing it, experiencing it, and being it. You want to be one of those ones that when you think about, hey, here's something that I want to do, let me figure out what's one small thing I can figure out and how to get there. So, if you're waiting for the perfect moment to pivot, I'm telling you, it doesn't exist. It's just the time that you decide. What does exist is your ability to make intentional, strategic shifts starting today. You could have so much done already this week. What is that speaker application that you have been sitting on and not putting out there? You can take a look at that today. So I want to challenge you. What's one small action that you can take this week toward your next pivot? And if this episode resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment, send me a message. Better yet, schedule a time and we can talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe, share this episode with someone who needs it, and keep following along. Until next time, let's keep moving forward.